Hello, it's Jack, and welcome back to another episode, video, whatever you want to call it, for Car Mechanic 2021. And in this video, I'd like to go through some challenges that I think people are facing when they come to have the performance upgrade on some of the cars, especially on some of the story orders. And I think there's a lot of mystique and myth surrounding the performance parts on cars. So I've got some pretty simple calculations to show you, but I want to be able to showcase something which I don't think a lot of people realize. Well, from what I'm picking up on YouTube videos, on Reddit, on Facebook, I think there's a lot of, like I said, mystique and, witchcraft around this. So without further ado, I'm going to pick an example, okay? So let's say we've got a Nissan Silvia i4 DOHC. So this is a DLC. This is the downloadable content. It's the extra pack that you can buy and you get the Nissan Silvia. I've just picked this engine just arbitrarily, as they say. It's random. So you can apply this to any engine in the game. So first of all, you've got the factory HP of the i4 DOHC, specifically the SR20 DET model. Okay, 250 HP. So let's say we want to add some performance to that. Let's say we want to stick an exhaust manifold on it. Okay, so we stick on this exhaust manifold. Sounds like a submarine's just come in, doesn't it? Goodness me. So yeah, we're going to add let's say, sorry, I had to just stop the video for a second. My phone was on sound. So 250 HP, we want to add something to it. We're going to put an exhaust manifold on it. Now, we can put on this exhaust manifold, it's the i4 SR20. It's a performance part, okay? And it's going to cost you 245 credits, okay? That will give you a 4%, that's HP, 4% HP horsepower increase on the performance of the car, okay? Now what's important is that factory HP. That is the factory HP that car was released from the factory at 250 HP. So 4% is on the factory HP. It's not 4 horsepower, it's 4% more horsepower. So simple calculation, you take the 250 horsepower, you times it by 0.04, which is 4%, that gives you 10 horsepower. So for 245 credits, you're going to get an extra 10 horsepower in the car. Okay, simple math. 250 horsepower, the base factory horsepower plus the 10%, the 10 horsepower we're going to get will give us 260 horsepower. Okay, it's a 4% increase, but giving us 10 horsepower. And then we can actually just really quickly calculate how much that's going to be for every horsepower. So it's costing us 245 credits. We divide that by the number of horsepower we're getting for that money, which equals, because it's divisible by 10, it's nice, it's 24.5. So for every horsepower for that particular part, it's going to cost you 24.5. Now just take example, let's just take a silly example. If we had a factory horsepower, 500 horsepower, and you're able to put the same exhaust manifold on that car with 500 horsepower as the factory horsepower, you're going to get double up. Okay, you're actually going to get 20 horsepower. And then of course, because the part is the same cost, 245, it's 245 credits divided by 20 now, so you're halving it. Yeah, the cost of the credit per horsepower comes down significantly, and it's something I think that people need to be aware of, that it's the factory horsepower that you're increasing by a certain percentage when you buy a specific performance part. Easy maths. I hope that clears some of it up. But in saying that, that's not everything. And I just want to show you something else in game, so bear with me. I just want to go over something I think is quite interesting. Okay, so this is a wonderful car that I just got ripped off with. I bought it from an auction and I paid way over the odds for it. As you can see, I'm into this, it's minus 202,800. I don't know what happened. I mean, it's a shit car and I paid a fortune for it, but never mind, never mind. What I'm going to show you here is the engine that was in this car, okay, was a little bit dodgy. Okay, it wasn't the best engine, and so it was losing some horsepower. So when I ran the dyno test on that original engine, it was delivering, way below par of what it should have been delivering. Now, however, I've just put in a brand new built engine. Okay, it's the i3 DOHC turbocharged engine. I had it pre-built, it was in my warehouse, and I put this in. Okay, so you would have maybe expect to get 166 brake horsepower, but I'm only getting 158. Now I'm getting 158 even though it's a brand new engine. So you know, why am I not getting the 166? And that is where some of the witchcraft comes into play, because it's not just about the engine. There's a lot of other performance parts, okay, or sorry, parts as I should say, not performance parts. There's no performance parts on this vehicle whatsoever. You can see up here the value of the vehicle. There's no performance parts on it. But what is influencing that performance, or the HP here, 166 and 158, is all the ancillary parts that go on the engine, or are part of the engine, sorry, like the air filter, for example, the exhaust. I don't know if it's also to do with the gearbox, I'm not sure, but because some of these parts are not at 100%, you know, factory, you know, pristine clean, I'm still not going to get that 166 horsepower. I'm only going to get 158 because the engine's new, but other parts need to be repaired or replaced so I can get back to that 166. Does that make sense? I think it makes perfect sense. So just an engine replacement is not going to give you the full potential of the build. You might think it does. You might think, oh yeah, I've got, you know, maybe it went to 170, so you thought, oh yeah, I've got an extra 4% because I put on a small performance part or whatever. But you could get even more if you fixed all the other parts that attribute to the factory horsepower itself. Okay? Now, another interesting fact, which some of you may or may not know, the factory power on this particular vehicle is 166 horsepower, and that is coming from this i3 dual overhead cam turbocharged engine, as I should say. Just remember 166, okay, 166 base horsepower. Now we're back in the garage. I'm going to run over here to the engine stand, as if we were going to build a new engine, okay? Now imagine we were to go and now build the i3 dual overhead cam. That's the i4. We don't want that one. We don't want that one, my friend. We want the i3. i3 dual overhead cam turbocharged engine. That is the engine that is in that vehicle. 125 horsepower. Now isn't that strange? So this engine on its own, okay, without all the ancillary bits and the specific exhaust and the filter system that is put onto any individual car, is taking it to the 166 that it's rated at. Yeah? And I think that's an important factor, that people think, oh, 125 horsepower from this engine, that's pretty powerful. Well, it's actually even more powerful, or the car becomes more powerful, once you put all the other bits and pieces on the engine. I know, makes sense. So the horsepower the horsepower of the vehicle cannot be attributed only to the engine. It's the combination of the parts, or the rest of the parts on the car, obviously not the hood and the lights, but you know, the stuff that makes the engine work, air filter, you know, and the fuel pump and all that good stuff, is what gives you your base HP from factory. Yeah, I mean, simple as that. Short video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped some of you out. It's, you know, it's not rocket science. It's pretty straightforward. Anyway, once again, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for listening to me and watching this very, very short video of mine. And drop us a sub, drop us a comment. And you know what? I'll talk to you soon. Jack's out.